Hey everyone, so today I just finished my recent very hard playthrough of King Arthur Knight's Tale, and while I'm still working on a review for it, I just wanted to share with you at least a tier list of who I thought were the strongest knights in the game. Note that this is all subjective, blah 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 and all that stuff, but I did at least complete the game on very hard, so I want to talk about not just why units are strong, but whether or not you should keep them on the round table for not just combat, but for certain benefits. So we'll be going over that as well. So aside from that, I'll be going over the team comp recommended for very hard difficulty, and if you should pick certain morality over others. And without further ado, let's get into the tier lists. So I have a list. I have a tier list here for the knights, and I also have a bunch of. I can look them up anytime. Just check out what their skills are. So with that, let's get into it. So first, there's let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes, no, and the most important class is the Vanguard, but I think we'll go with Defender first, since our main boy Mordred, your main character, is a Defender. So, let's talk about Mordred. Mordred's obviously S tier. He's basically required in most story missions, so you kind of have no choice. So he's forced to be S tier. Even if you weren't forced to use him in story mode, I think he would still be S tier, honestly. So Mordred has some really powerful tools for crowd control. So first he has Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt basically stuns. You have an 8 range stun for free. No, that's already ridiculously powerful, even though it costs 5 AP. You have nothing to use with their AP anyway. You have Cat's Stigma, which just gets rid of armor. Thunderbolt also gets rid of armor, by the way, if you upgrade it, so it's amazing. Cast Stigma just gets rid of armor, causes vulnerability, very strong. It's 1 AP after it's upgraded, and I think it's 2 turn cooldown. Both Cast Stigma and Thunderbolt have a 2 turn cooldown, which is absolutely amazing with Inspire, which I'll talk about later, and it's just great. You also have Shield Charge, which is great for crowd control. It knocks back and knocks down. The knockdown isn't guaranteed since certain enemies can't get knocked down, but the knockback's pretty helpful because if you have a champion going in, for example, and then you need them to get out and put Mordred in the front, you can just knock back the enemy that the champion's engaging, send the champion back, and have Mordred kind of just wall the guy out. So because he's a defender, absolutely amazing defensive stats, a lot of armor. So just overall, I think S tier. So we'll look over the other defenders. So we have, next is Red Knight. Red Knight is in an awkward position because I feel like he should have been a champion. He has a lot of offensive skills. So Red Knight has stuff like he has a single target taunt, which is okay. Shield Charge. He has a throwing axe, and he has Master Bleeding, which triggers bleeding twice every turn, which is okay but not amazing on very hard, just because you don't want too many turns to go by before you finish the fight. So bleeding for me is not too useful, especially on defender. So I'm gonna put him at B tier. He does decent damage, but he's a defender, so he doesn't have the same offensive stats as a champion would. And champions are kind of one of the damage leaders classes in the game. So it's a little awkward for a Red Knight. I'm gonna put him at B tier. Next we have Galahad. So Galahad is a little interesting. He has some pretty unique. He has a unique tool set. So he has Flaming Strike, free burning attacks, which is nice. Does decent damage. Shield Charge, very nice. Divine Favor. This one is 1 AP, 10% weapon damage for 1 turn. 2 AP for 4 turn cooldown, meh, it's okay. It's not terrible, but it's something. Holy Smite, this is your power attack, melee damage skill. Then you have Cleansing Fire, which is a fire version of Mordred's Thunderbolt. The problem with fire skills in the game is that it doesn't CC. No, there's no crowd control in fire, and I think you definitely want to hit priority targets and stun them instead of just cause them damage that won't necessarily kill them, especially on very hard. because it's almost 100% guaranteed that a single spell will not kill your priority targets. So I think I always prefer Mordred's Thunderbolt, which can stun and get rid of a turn, compared to a fire skill like Cleansing Fire. So for me, Galahad will have to go B tier. So next we have Gawain. So Gawain is fucking useless. So this skill is basically useless. No, he needs 3 skill points to learn active skills, which is terrible, absolutely terrible. He has nothing crazy either. Out for the defender's moveset, aside from freezing attack, which can CC technically, but that comes too late in the game. It's not exactly useful. So Gawain is easy C tier. Actually, maybe even D tier. Next is Peleus. Peleus is your basic defender, I think. He has shield charge, and he has this armor skill that gives AP and gives extra armor to both Peleus and whoever's near him. So could be useful, but nothing amazing, I think. It's not quite useful, I don't think, compared to Mordred no CC availability. So Peleus goes C tier. Percival is actually quite interesting. So Percival is basically the better version of Peleus in my opinion. He has a burning melee attack, which is great. It does decent damage. Shield charge, the plus armor plus AP, and then he has this immolation skill, which is sort of it's another cleave attack, which is nice. It's nice to have another AoE move, but the issue is still the same. He's a defender, so there's not really much point in doing damage. So Percival, I think B tier at best. He can do stuff. He's a decent Mordred replacement if Mordred isn't available for the mission, like he got injured in an event or something. No choice. Okay, so those are all of the defenders, I think. So next, let's move on to the champions. So Black Knight. Black Knight has interesting. He has a leap attack, which is nice. It's like a cleave leap attack, and there are a lot of enemies that kind of group together. So this is pretty decent. But aside from that, nothing special. He has Blood Hex, but Blood Hex is easily the worst hex in the game, so not very useful. Otherwise, he has a standard champion moveset. Champions always have like Cleave, Power Attack, Earthshaker. Yeah, that's basically it. Earthshaker is probably one of the better champion moves, but it's also not the best because it costs 6 AP and it has this awkward like hitbox that you have to aim. It's like 6 tiles and it's super awkward tile range. So hard to say it's the best. But he has leap attack, so that's something. So to me, Black Knight should be B tier, I think. Next we'll go Balan. So a lot of the champions actually have completely similar movesets. I think champions have the least variation in terms of movesets, and maybe our Marksmen too. So we'll just go through that real quick, like the ones I mentioned earlier. Basically, anything that has a standard moveset is just C tier, in my opinion. There's not much reason to use them outside of early game, where you're kind of forced to use them. So that's Sir Balan, Lanval, Sir Kay. So Sir Kay is a little awkward in my opinion because even though he has a standard moveset, you're kind of forced to use him in the early game, and he's the only one with an early game cleave that you can use before level 5 or level 6. So for the very hard difficulty, I think you need Kay for the early game, but he falls off super hard late game because firstly he's a neutral character, so it's really hard to increase his loyalty, and he doesn't have anything special aside from that. So maybe I want to say you need Sir Kay in the early game since you need to upgrade cleave, but he just falls off so hard. But I'll give him the early game because I'll move him up a tier for the early game just because he's so important. And you need to survive early game. So and then we also have White Knights. So White Knight's a little more interesting. Okay, White Knight. basically has this special skill called Blessed Weapon, which you gain 20% weapon damage for 2 turns. That's his only redeeming factor, which is not bad, I guess. It's something. Aside from that, he has a standard moveset. But White Knight, I think that skill alone is enough to put him up a tier, just because that extra damage really helps on very hard. And last we have Lancelot in the champion list. So Lancelot is easily the best champion in the game. He has a charge attack that deals 150% weapon damage for 4 AP, actually ridiculous. He has Ice Spikes, which is another amazing AoE weapon. It's another amazing AoE skill. It does 2 tiles in front and then 3 tiles at the back in the second row, which is absolutely amazing for AoE against a lot of trash mobs. And the important part, he has Inspire. Inspire, this spell is easily one of the best spells in the game. It reduces cooldowns by 1 for all characters on the screen, or for all allies on the screen. Gives 2 AP and 1 movement AP. Absolutely amazing skill. Lancelot can work as a support buff bot, and he can assassinate any weak trash mobs or anything that needs to be immediately gotten rid of with the charge skill. So he's basically a way better version of what Black Knight or Red Knight was supposed to be, because you have an amazing charge skill in addition to a bunch of other powerful AoE moves, in addition to Whirlwind, right? We have every other champion has Whirlwind too, but that means Lancelot alone has 3 AoE skills available. And then you have Radiance, which blinds everything in your vicinity. I haven't found much use for this skill because champions shouldn't be tanking him very hard. But it's there. The only unfortunate thing is that Lancelot comes really late into the game and he's limited to the rightful morality. So if you're not rightful, you can't get Lancelot. So, but just based off all of those things that we mentioned earlier, Lancelot's easy S tier. Best champion in the game. No other champion comes close. And yeah, if you are rightful, I highly suggest getting Lancelot and putting him on the team. Okay, so let's move on to the Marksmen. Okay, so first on Marksmen. Marksmen are the worst class in the game, I think. They have no AoE until late game. They barely do any damage on very hard difficulty, and you have to spend 4 AP per shot, which is honestly just dumb. And then the CC they give is just poison and fire, which also does nothing. At most you get a 10% damage reduction, which is useless on very hard, and you are just fucked whenever you are swarmed with enemies. No, at best you can probably get 1 or 2 kills per turn, and that's not what you want on very hard, considering the number of enemies and how much damage they do to you per turn. There's basically almost no differences among the movesets of the Marksmen, so it's just kind of useless to use them, I think, outside of early game. Basically, once you get sages available in the mid game or by Act 2, by the middle of Act 2, you should throw away all your Marksmen immediately and just use them for round table stuff. So that means Dindrain is just C tier. Actually, I'm gonna put him at D tier, basically useless. If it's on the easier difficulties, this shouldn't be an issue. They should do enough damage to let you clear the game. But on very hard, they're just completely useless. So we have Dindrain, Geraint. Geraint has a pseudo AoE. He has a lightning arrow skill at level 5 onwards. This is not bad. It does 100% weapon damage, 50% weapon damage to the 2 enemies closest, so that's okay. But it's still not amazing. Not enough damage, basically. And then we have Boars. So Boars, all of the Marksmen I think are D tier, but I will move them up to C tier for certain reasons. So Boris, his only reason to give him C tier is that his one of his skills, we're looking at this skill, Tradesman. When appointed as the Court Chandler, you get more items from the merchant, which can be useful. Increases by 1 every 10 levels. Not amazing, so this is easily just a optional thing. You don't really need them. Evane, just based off of his skill alone, even though he's absolutely useless in combat, this coin counter trait is absolutely amazing. Increase the gold rewards awarded by all missions by a certain percentage every 5 levels. So you get a decent. It's not like super amazing, but considering how strapped you are for gold and resources in the game, you kind of just want this extra gold running in your inventory. So always nice to have. Evane, just leave him in your round table, but don't ever use him in combat, basically. And then we have Damas, D tier. What else do we have? I think that's it. Yeah. So those are our marksmen. And yeah, marksmen are just shit on very hard, so just use them for the round table benefits. And then let's move on to the important, one of the most important classes, the Vanguard. So on very hard, the Vanguard is basically the soul of your team. They're the main DPS because they do the most damage, and you need the most damage on very hard. And they can hide basically out of any enemies, so they don't have to worry about them getting killed as long as you position them properly. And with enough buffs, they can basically exterminate most of the enemy back line in 1 or 2 turns. Basically, if you have a Vanguard, you can finish most fights in 2 to 3 turns. Even with the recent nerfs to the Vanguard class, it just changed from eliminating the enemy in 1 to 2 turns to 2 to 3 turns. So you definitely want good Vanguards, but not all Vanguards fit the bill, no, for what an S tier Vanguard should be. Because we're looking for 2 things on the S tier Vanguards. First, you need the jump skill, because you need that to just get behind enemy lines and get the backstab bonus. Backstab bonus does so much damage in this game, and you need it to kill most enemies in 1 hit. And then you need 3 AP attack. Most Vanguards have only use 3 AP for attacks, and the less AP you use, the more you can recover when using when you have the right equipment, which means you can use more attacks and you can kill more enemies in 1 turn, so you don't have to worry about your tanks dying immediately. So let's just get rid of the shit Vanguards first. Tristan, he has a 4 AP attack, so he's immediately off the table. Bedivere has no jump, so immediately off the table as well. The only reason we can still consider him C tier is that at late game, all Vanguards are able to dodge immunity attacks. One of the skills allows that, so you won't have to worry about jumping too much, but you are wasting movement AP for no reason if you don't have jump. The best Vanguards: Tegir, Balin. Balin you can get really early in the game. You should definitely get him regardless of whether or not you are Tyrant, because Balin is Tyrant Christian, Tegir is Rightful Christian. So if you're Rightful, you go Tegir. If you're Tyrant, you go Balin. In the early game, when you have the option to pick between Balin and Balan, you can pick the neutral option to get them both, which is recommended. So you can use Balin in the early game. Vanguards aren't super powerful in the early game, but they still do pretty decent amount of damage since you can get jump early and start backstabbing enemies. So very powerful. And then you have Boudica. Boudica is in an awkward position because she fits all of the criteria of a good Vanguard, but the problem is she's neutral. Her alignment is neutral, which means it's ridiculously hard to raise her loyalty, and you'll be missing out on the 20% damage bonus and 1 AP bonus. Her skill, or one of her traits, gives one movement AP guaranteed, but that doesn't really make up for the extra damage bonus and the AP bonus that you'll get from using Tegir or Balin. So basically, if you're running very hard, once you have Balin available, grab Balin, and then if you're Rightful, eventually transition into Tegir and just use him from there. You can still use Boudica, but she comes into Act 3, I think. So it's still a little late, but Tegir, if you're rightful, Tegir will do the job. Next, we will go over the sages. So sages are really important for your playthrough, just because they offer a great amount of support to your vanguards and can do all sorts of stuff, like, and can support in terms of armor reduction and just sniping off priority targets. So there aren't that many sages, so let's just go over that real quick. So your main sage that you get from the story, and the first sage you'll probably get, is Guinevere. S tier, easy S tier. Let me show you why. So Guinevere has some pretty damn amazing skills. So aside from Bless, Freezing Touch, and Inspire, which are all default sage abilities, you get Teleport. Teleport is actually amazing for Guinevere because you can teleport behind an archer, for example, those pesky archers. If your Vanguard doesn't have enough AP to completely clear out the back line, you can just send Guinevere to teleport behind the archer, Freezing Touch, kill, move out, right? The problem is, in the mid game, when you get Guinevere, you don't have a lot of options to get out after you go in with teleport. No. Only in the late game, when you get a skill called Wish of Death in Mysticism, I think, whatever the skill is. Basically, this skill gives you reduces all your cooldowns by 1 if you kill an opponent. So if Guinevere just teleports in, kills the opponent, Inspire to reduce the cooldown, since teleport has a 2-turn cooldown. So kill the opponent, reduce the cooldown by 1, Inspire, reduce cooldown by 1, get extra AP, teleport out. So she can kind of do that sort of sequence and immediately get rid of 1 or 2 enemies if your Vanguard isn't really doesn't have enough AP to kill all of the enemies in the backline. Inspire obviously is amazing. I talked about it earlier. Inspire just gives extra AP to your Vanguard and whoever else needs it to get extra damage off. So it's just amazing because one Inspire could just get rid of 1 extra enemy. Absolutely amazing. So that's great. Guinevere, easy S tier. Next we have Isolde. So Isolde, I think, is a worse version of Guinevere, but she's also more powerful in the mid game until you get your late game skills for Guinevere. So let's just look up Isolde real quick. So the main difference with Isolde is that she sacrifices teleport for an Ice Lance skill. Ice Lance is just an amazing skill because it's like an 8 range throwing skill. Ice applies chill on hit. You have an upgrade for it to apply freeze as well. And it gets rid of hella armor. Every time you throw an Ice Lance, it could probably get rid of at least 6 armor, which is great if your Vanguard needs someone to get rid of armor for them. And since she's standing behind the back line, behind your defender and maybe champion, she's great for just throwing stuff from the back and making sure that you have an armor aura as well. So just making sure that your main frontliners get an armor aura. So pretty good, but Guinevere eventually takes her crown away once you get this skill, which reduces cooldowns by 1 every time you kill an enemy. Since once you have that for Guinevere, Guinevere becomes much safer. But until that happens, I think Isolde is a solid choice for a sage. You can also give her a relic that gives teleport. There's one of the relics that I bought in my playthrough had that allow you to teleport once per encounter. So you could use that as well as a finisher if your Vanguard doesn't have enough AP. Okay, and then you have Lucan and Leodegrance. Useless. Compared to Isolde and Guinevere, they don't do anything unique. They're just worse versions of Isolde and Guinevere. So B tier, I guess, since they're still sages. They give Bless and then they give Inspire. So lastly, we have Arcanists. So Arcanists are a little more unique because they have the most diversity in terms of available spells, and what their roles are for the fight. So we'll go over them one by one. So Arcanists. So first we have Fairy Knight. Fairy Knight's awkward, honestly. I have no idea what to do with him. So Fairy Knight is super awkward. He's an Arcanist, but he has a melee attack. He has range attack, melee attack, slow hex, fire blast, and cleave skill. Melees, you cleave skill. But I don't know why you'd ever want an Arcanist on the front line. There's like no reason for it, honestly. You do have an armor skill, but it only applies to the first hit, and after that you're basically screwed. So I just can't imagine it. He has no AoE. He has nothing. I don't know. Just useless. So Fairy Knight's D tier. What we're looking for in Arcanists are either damage or solid CC. Either to reduce AP of a lot of enemies or prevent them from coming closer, or just enough damage to completely wipe them off the map. Problem is, in very hard, it's basically impossible to wipe enemies off the map in the first spell or in the first turn with Arcanists. You can maybe get rid of one or two enemies, but AoE skills will not like blow up a bunch of enemies at once. It's basically impossible. So what we're aiming for Arcanists are mostly CC and a little bit of supporting damage that kind of helps your Vanguards as needed. So Fairy Knight's shit at that, so D tier. Next we have Merlin. So Merlin's interesting, right? Because you get the option between Merlin and Morgoth in Act 2 or 3. He has an interesting number of spells. So he has a bunch of fire spells, which is a step down for me, no? Fire spells deal a lot of damage, but they don't CC at all. Maybe you could if you leave a fire surface, you can kind of force enemies to move around it and reduce their movement AP, but it's not as reliable as frost or lightning spells. So I don't like Merlin because of that, but he has some pretty solid AoE spells. So he has Falling Star, 3x3 area, Fire Drake, 5 tile long straight line, and I think he has Fire Blast. Does he have? Yes, no, he doesn't have Fire Blast. I lied. But for a CC, he has Mind Fog, which causes enemies to attack each other for one turn. But the problem with this is that enemies with debuff resist can resist it, so it makes it more useless, especially in the late game when all of the enemies basically have ridiculous amounts of debuff resist. Ravenswarm's meh, it's a slow hex. There's a little bit of damage, but nothing crazy. But he does have just powerful AoE spells, more than others, I think. He has at least 2, which is more than I can say for other Arcanists. Which is, I guess he has Teleport too, but I don't think it's as important to an Arcanist as it is to a Sage. So, I kind of want a B tier for... You know what, that's A tier for Merlin. He's not bad. He can do stuff. Okay, next... Morgana. So Morgana, I was not convinced by Morgana's skill set when I first saw her, but when I started using her on my very hard playthrough, I was actually convinced. To me, Morgana is an easy S tier. Honestly, Morgana is just so good. She's an Ice Master, our Ice Arcanists, no? So she has a bunch of amazing ice spells that apply Chill or Frozen. And Chill reduces AP by half. Frozen is the same as Stun, completely removes all AP from the opponent, depending on the debuff resist, but that's already amazing in of itself. That's to me, that's way better than Fire will ever be in this game, or on very hard at least. On normal and hard, Fire is probably better. But on very hard, I would 100% choose Ice over Fire. So you have Glacial Strike. This causes freeze if you upgrade it. 3-turn cooldown. Ice Thorns, this is a 4x4 chill. So it just applies chill on an entire group of enemies, which is great. Imagine just halving a bunch of the AP of a bunch of enemies at once. Absolutely amazing. She also has a a bunch of good hexes. She has Slowing Hex, Blood Hex, and Death Hex. Slowing Hex is okay. Blood Hex is shit. I haven't found a good use for Blood Hex at all. Because you don't want to... Reducing damage is useless, I think, when you'd rather just get rid of them before they can do damage or prevent them from coming to you. Slowing Hex is okay. Death Hex is amazing because this reduces enemy vitality by 40% if it's upgraded. So if there's a tough enemy that you need to get rid of immediately, you can just Death Hex them and then send your Vanguard over to kill them. Easy peasy, really nice. The reason I put Morgana at S tier is because I was able to find a relic that reduced the cooldown of all iced spells by 1 turn. Right? So stuff like Glacial Strike gets 2 turn cooldown, Ice Storms gets 2 turn cooldown. Absolutely amazing. And you have another spell, I think it's called the Mind Storm spell, which basically if you have 3 spells that are on cooldown, your next spell reduces cooldowns by 1, which is absolutely amazing. And if you have Inspire as well, basically you get 2 to 3 turns of free Glacial Strike and Ice Storms like spells all the way. Absolutely amazing. The Ice Bolt skill, like all of the bolt skills to me are just completely fucking useless. So I would never take this into account because 6 AP is a terrible like performance ratio. Like just in terms of cost efficiency, there's no reason to use 6 AP just to kill a single or barely damage enemies. It's better to CC them or just outright support your Vanguard to kill them with Death Hex or other hexes and prevent enemies from coming towards you. So to me, Morgana's easy S tier, very powerful just for CC alone. Next, we have Dagonet. Dagonet is interesting. I'll put him at B tier because he has no offensive spells despite being an Old Faith. I guess it's because he's an Old Faith. He has no offensive spells. He only has Force Bolt. That's his only offensive spell. He just has a bajillion hexes. He has this Desecrated Ground spell, which does 20% weapon damage in a 3x3 area. Shit, honestly, actually terrible. Doesn't do anything. So he just has stuff that can reduce the AP cost of his hexes. He has a bunch of hexes that are just that just help in support, but he also has no CC outside of those hexes, and hex cooldowns are quite long. Slow Hex, for example, has like a 3-turn cooldown. Death Hex is like a 3-turn cooldown as well when it's upgraded. So I don't know, I just can't get behind the pure Hex and just my only damage is Force Bolt theory. It's just not gonna work out. I don't know, it's just can't. So maybe I'm gonna lower him to C tier. And then we have Ector. So Sir Ector is one of the first Arcanists you get. He has Fire Blast at level 6 onwards. That's something. He also has the standard hexes that Morgana has. Death Hex, Slow Hex, Blood Hex. But like I said, Blood Hex is shit. Slow Hex is okay. Death Hex is nice. But you also only have Fire Blast, which is fire. And like I said earlier, I prefer Ice over Fire just to reduce AP of enemies. Aside from that, he doesn't have anything crazy. Wall of Flame, just fucking useless. I don't know where to use this at all. Kind of just forces enemies to run through it, but it doesn't do that much damage anyway. So, not helpful at all to me. The only reason you would want Ector on your round table is that he has amazing traits. First is Contact. He gets 100 gold if he doesn't participate in the mission, which is great early game since you need all the gold you can get. He also has, if you appoint him as Master of Magic in the Enchanted Tower, you get Relic Dust. So if you, in the early game, the moment you get Ector, you can just build the Enchanted Tower, and even if you can't buy the relics, you can just put him as Master of Magic and start accumulating Relic Dust. Very nice, and it increases by level. So you just get more and more Relic Dust as you go along the game. So to me, he's just great as a supporting character on the round table. So even though he's like C tier, I'm gonna move him up to A tier just because he should be on a round table just to get Relic Dust and gold. Don't ever use him in combat. I don't think you have any reason to use him in combat. So just keep him in the round table. And then you have Morgos. So Morgos is this awkward character, no? Same as, very similar to Fairy Knight, but I think slightly better. She has lightning spells and ice spells, right? So she has a bunch of powerful spells that can CC. So Lightning Bolt, for example, can stun. Ice Spikes. Oh no, Ice Spikes isn't too useful since it's a melee skill. So she has a bunch of melee skills in addition to range skills. No, so Freezing Touch, right, for CC. Ice Spikes for melee as well. She also has Ice Shield to kind of go into melee. And then for her range skills, she has Thunderbolt for stun, Chain Lightning for shock, and Thunderstorm as well, which kind of just puts Thunderstorm on the targeted tile, which is meh. I think it's not. I hate like DOT damage skills for very hard because you need to kill enemies ASAP, or else they'll kill you before you can kill them. So she has like the lightning alone, like her lightning skills, Thunderbolt and Chain Lightning, are quite powerful, I think. But she has no teleport to support her melee skills. But you know, this value alone is quite strong, so I'm not gonna put her as complete shit. A tier or B tier, I think, for Morgos. You know what? Let's do A tier. I think that's worth the lightning damage and stun. Alright, so that's basically all of the characters. So I guess next I want to talk about party comp and how you want to run, what the game plan is for Very Hard. So on Very Hard, your team comp should just be your Mordred, Sage, Guinevere, or Isolde, Vanguard, which will be Tegir or Balin, and then you have a flex slot. So your flex slot can be whoever you want it to be. I used Lancelot in my playthrough since he can at least kind of tank. But if you have Morgana, that works as well. The problem is Morgana and Lancelot just come in later in the game. So you can run whoever you want as the fourth slot until you reach that point. In the early game, before you get Guinevere, it's all about surviving. So you're kind of just forced to run K, Mordred. And you want to make sure you get a bunch of upgrades for K that give cleave damage and area damage to make sure that all of the trash mobs die in one go. But aside from that, once you get into mid-game with Guinevere, you shouldn't have any more issues with the game. For the most part, you probably just have to watch out for positioning in certain fights that have a lot of annoying enemies. And then, so based off of that as well, we have Tyrant Rightful morality choices. So honestly, it's not that big of a difference between Tyrant and Rightful in this game. Rightful gives you Sir Lancelot, which is great. But Tyrant also gives you more gold and building resources than you know what to do with in the early game, which really helps with getting good equipment that can really help you. So, and then you have Christian versus Old Faith. Rightful Christian gives you Joust, which reduces mission timers by 1, which is nice, very nice, honestly. But it's nothing. I don't think you can really abuse it because you need enough resources to buy equipment anyway. So it's whatever. It's really up to you if you want to go Tyrant or Rightful. Just know that you have options either way, and you can kind of just run it that way. Oh, I forgot. So Sir Brunor can give you extra gold in the round table for every mission if you put him as Grandmaster, but aside from that, he's completely useless, and his recruitment mission is actually one of the hardest missions in the game for where you're at, so I really don't like him that much, but you know, extra gold's nice, so I'll take him. So that's worth moving up a tier, I guess. And I think that's it. So I'm still working on my review, but do let me know if you agree with this. So remember that this is all subjective, and like, I'm not really an expert at this game, but I have completed the game very hard. So let me know if you agree, or if you think other characters are amazing that I haven't really gone into or tried properly. So just let me know in the comments below. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you!